So, Governor, I just wanted to kind of start. Obviously, this week is when the indoor mask mandate will be lifted. I mean, as you know, we were the last in the nation. What do you say to critics that, first about us being the last in the nation, and then also I'm just curious, since you've been pretty hesitant before this point, just you personally, when that does go into effect, just what's your own personal comfort level with, going out and about and being in restaurants? Are you comfortable taking your mask off?
So certainly a couple things. I mean, clearly, Hawaii is the last state in the country. Hawaii also has the lowest per capita infection rates in the country and amongst the lowest death rates in the country. We made a conscious decision to put a focus and a priority on the public's health, and I'm proud of that. For me personally, it will become the mandate goes away, it becomes a personal decision, and I will continue to wear a mask in those situations where I'm interacting with people that I don't know what their status is. So I certainly will be wearing a mask when I'm at Long's and out and about. In our office, we are definitely looking at, and it gets back to good practices in this age of infectious disease. So, within my work bubble, with people I work with on a regular basis, and we know that they're not sick, and we do know that they're vaccinated, then clearly, mask would become, discretionary. Certainly when I'm meeting indoors with people that I don't interact with on a regular basis, I will be wearing a mask and I will ask them to wear a mask.
And we hear from a lot of parents too. Obviously, schools are a different ballgame for now. It's still being recommended that masks stay on in schools. We hear from a lot of parents that kind of question if we're getting rid of the indoor mask mandate everywhere else, we should do it for schools as well. What do you say to parents about kind of what you see as the next steps for masks in schools?
Yeah, so just a couple things to remind people. The CDC is still saying that there are situations where they would recommend masking. So it's any time that you have many people and they cannot maintain physical distancing. So I do think it makes sense to continue the mask mandate indoors in schools. I do believe that as the case counts continue to drop and we see fewer patients in the hospitals, we will consider dropping the mask mandate. It is all about keeping our community healthy and safe. The vaccination rates, especially for the younger children, 5 to 12, is not as high as the vaccination rates for the older children from 12 to 17, and that's not as high as the vaccination rates for older adults. So clearly we want to be smart and prudent, follow the science, and continue to wear masks to keep our community healthy and safe.
Is there a benchmark where you would be comfortable getting rid of indoor mask mandates for students?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think the Department of Education is working with the Department of Health, looking at the situation. The department has also been working on things like improving circulation. We've deployed air purifiers, across the system. Those kinds of things are helpful as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I do think that, we want to get back to normal. We want to manage the virus in the school setting as best as we can. We want to get to an in-person graduation. And I think all of those things will require us to maintain control over the virus and make sure that we don't see a surge in the schools, which would cause us to try to be more restrictive.
And with the end of this also comes, of course, with the end of safe travels. Looking back on the Safe Travels program, a lot of people are wondering just obviously there were a lot of logistics that went into it, the airport screening, the technology. How much has actually been spent on that, and do you think it was worth it?
We don't have a final accounting. It was several $millions per month that it cost. The Safe Travels program went for 17 months. We will end up being able to safely bring back 12 million travelers in that 17-month period. Just remember that the visitor industry was our number one industry pre-pandemic and generated $17 billion of economic activity. And the actual cost of the program pales in comparison to the economic activity it brought. At the height of the pandemic, when we first ordered the travel quarantine, unemployment was 22%, and now it's down to 5 or 6. I don't have the current statistics, but clearly safe travels have allowed us to get people back to work.
Switching gears to Red Hill, obviously this is something that our lawmakers have all been pushing to see this decision to shut down Red Hill. Moving forward, what do you want to see as the future of Red Hill when it comes to keeping our water supply safe?
Well, as you are aware, the state emergency order is still in force. We are making sure that we hold the Navy accountable. They said that they would be delivering a defueling plan by the end of May, and we certainly look forward to that. We know that we want to defuel in a safe way that doesn't put our community further at risk. We're glad to hear that they're committed to decommissioning the facility, and we want to know exactly what that means. We want to make sure that we're not going to leave relics in the ground that would continue to jeopardize our water supply. So, we look forward to getting the decommissioning plans from the Navy. It's important that they just not walk away from that facility, that the community and the public can rest assured that we won't be subjected to fuel in the water again.
Aside from the water safety and the environmental part of this, Native Hawaiians were also at the forefront of calling for Red Hill to be shut down, but there's also the issue of our just relationship with the military in general. There's now calls for that hundreds of acres on the west side to be returned in Makua Valley. And of course, it was kind of on the back burner, but the Mauna Kea telescope project, where do you stand on both of those?
I support the Department of Defense presence in the island. Hawaii is a strategic location and is vitally important to the national security. The Indo-Pacific region is the most important region on the planet. And I'm proud that we have the commands of all of the Department of Defense agencies headquartered in Hawaii. Pearl Harbor is the largest industrial employer in the state, creating thousands of jobs that pay good wages, that the Navy is investing in a new dry dock, and we look forward to completion of the environmental studies that would assure us that they can do it in a safe way. And the military and federal spending is $14 billion a year, second only to our visitor industry. And it's good paying jobs, professional jobs, consultant jobs that really provide a broader diversity. And it was one portion of our economy that did not suffer during the pandemic.
Do you support the 30-meter telescope project moving forward?
I do support the 30-meter telescope project. I do believe that it's important for our state as well as our nation. Astronomy, the university had issued their report that astronomy brings $200 million of economic activity to our community. It creates high-paying jobs. I do think that we can balance cultural preservation and science on Mauna Kea, and I'm committed to continuing to do that.
And that really does put you at odds with a lot of the leaders in the Native Hawaiian community. What do you say to those in the Native Hawaiian community that say, no, you can't balance the two, and this is our line in the sand?
I've talked with many leaders in the Native Hawaiian community that support the 30-meter telescope. In addition to, I've had discussions with those who oppose it. So, it is about how we manage the conflict and balance science and protection of Native Hawaiian culture. Just would want to remind everyone that the kingdom did embrace astronomy. King Kalakaua did support Hawaii taking a preeminent presence in astronomy and talked about how he would relish the opportunity for Hawaii to be part of the greatest discoveries that can occur.
Right now, a lot of people are really financially struggling. You add gas prices and the current situation and in Ukraine into the mix. Are you considering a suspension of the gas tax here in Hawaii to kind of help alleviate that? And also, I know we in general we are trying to push towards more alternative fuel sources. Is that something that you want to see continue?
Yes, absolutely. And we're working to actually accelerate the transition off of fossil fuel. The oil prices spiking to over $100 a barrel again just reminds us. As you know, HECO had announced that they expected increase in cost for electricity. It just demonstrates again that we can transition to clean, renewable energy and save money. And so certainly we're looking at accelerating those projects that we are able to. The challenge is that a lot of those projects are caught up with the supply chain issues that has been affecting the world. So we are hopeful that happens. I do see the concern about the increase in gasoline prices. I think that impacts everyone. We have been working with the refinery to make certain that we can pursue non-Russian oil to meet our community needs. I think it's premature to talk about a suspension of the gasoline tax at this point in time. We struggle with our ability to pay for the highways that we have currently. The bipartisan infrastructure bill that the Congress passed does have a requirement for state matching funds in some areas. And certainly we want to be able to maximize the federal funds that we can attract to the islands.
What relief then would be coming in the short term? First, I wanted to ask, you mentioned in your State of the State address the $100 rebate. Is that still on the table, or given the current situation, should there be more?
Certainly I would, support some kind of increased rebate to the community. I in my State of the State, felt that that everyone deserves some kind of refund given our current situation. I know that many in our community continue to struggle, and that might be the simplest and most straightforward way to provide support directly to taxpayers here.
I know you mentioned, so for right now you said no short-term change to the gas tax. I did see though California is considering a $400 rebate for drivers. Anything like that, or is it just the $100 that's on the table right now?
Well, I do think that we are in a much better fiscal condition. As you know, the Council on Revenues just a couple of weeks ago increased their revenue forecast. So clearly our fiscal condition, because of actions we've taken in the past 12 months, is much improved and stronger. So we do have the ability to provide a bigger rebate back to the consumers, and I certainly would support that.
And you're from the Pearl City area. I got to ask you about the Aloha Stadium. What do you see as the next steps with that?
I do believe that we need to build a stadium. And we're committed as the administration to work within the existing law to build a facility so that the University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors has a place to play their home games.
Turn to some of the issues in the legislature. I know for years it's been considered. In the past, you've been more hesitant about legalizing recreational marijuana. Is that still your view?
Yes, I still am opposed to recreational marijuana. I've had discussions with governors that have implemented recreational marijuana. It does create a lot of challenges beyond the medicinal. It still is a controlled substance from the federal law enforcement perspective. I know that varying administrations have taken different approaches to how they would want to see that implemented. But I am concerned about the general public having the feeling that marijuana is legal when it is illegal from the federal perspective. And, my concern is that someone become accustomed to having marijuana on them and then, cross a federal barrier and then run into a significant criminal proceeding because they think that it's legalized when it is not.
And just overall, looking back with the last 2 years during the pandemic, if you could give yourself a grade, how do you think you did?
I mean, I do think that if I had to grade myself, I would give myself a B. There are always opportunities to do better. But I do take comfort in the fact that Hawaii has performed better than any other state in the country. And I do think and I believe that that really belongs to all the people of Hawaii. Hawaii has handled this pandemic better than any other state in the country. We have the lowest infection rates and the lowest fatality rates in the country. Our healthcare system, the physicians and nurses, the clinics have outperformed the country. The rate of hospitalizations is less than 1% amongst the lowest in the country. And, the healthcare industry is responsible for the low infection rates and the low per capita death rates. And it's because of all of us taking responsibility and putting the public health as a priority and really sacrificing personal conveniences, unlike the conflict that has occurred all across the country. So I really think that all the people of Hawaii should be proud of the response that we've had here in the islands to this COVID pandemic.
You said you give yourself a B. At some points, though, during the pandemic, when you looked at polls, you were at some points tied for the lowest, approval rating in the country. I know it's hard to make those decisions, but what do you say to people in Hawaii that didn't approve of the job that you did?
Well, I mean, I do understand, as governor, I had to take unpopular and make unpopular decisions. Nobody likes to order people to stay at home. Nobody likes to, order people to be in quarantine if they travel to the islands. But I was driven by data and the recommendations of the public health experts. I feel comfortable in being responsible to make those decisions. I do know that people disagreed with me at that time, but I do think that the results speak for themselves.
You're coming up on your last year in office. I mean, it's been a long 8 years. What would you say is the biggest success that you've seen in the last 8 years, and also the biggest thing that you wish you could have gotten done that you didn't get done?
We will continue to work really hard in the last months of this administration to, deliver affordable housing and really the investment in infrastructure that creates jobs and improves the quality of life. When you look at the 7,000 affordable rentals, for example, that we've been able to deliver to ensure that those making less than the median income have a roof over their heads. I think that we have made significant progress in that. Our work on the homelessness situation, even though the pandemic put a lot of things on pause, I still think that we've made significant progress in homelessness. There's still more to be done, I recognize. And people forget that Hawaii is a leader in the fight against climate change and global warming. and Hawaii becoming the first state to commit to 100% clean renewable energy for electricity led the way, and 12 other states have followed our lead. And I think the Sustainable Hawaii initiative, and I think most importantly, again, our community feeling a sense of responsibility for the environment and really supporting the aggressive actions that the state has taken to reduce greenhouse gases and really protect our environment. I think everyone understands how important protection of our oceans and our watersheds is to just the overall quality of life here in the islands.
And obviously, who do you want to see as your successor? I know your Lieutenant Governor Josh Green is running as well as some others in the Democratic primary. Who do you want to see succeed you in office?
I don't have a preference. I mean, I'm not taking a position in supporting any of the candidates. I really trust in the voters of the state of Hawaii. They look at the candidates and make the decision that best serves them. And going to an all mail-in ballot really has increased voter participation in our elections. And I do feel that over the next few months in this campaign, voters will really get a sense of the candidates that choose to run for governor. And I really believe that they'll make the right decision.
People might see that non-answer as, there obviously has been some friction at times during this pandemic between you and the lieutenant governor. To kind of say, well, I just trust the voters, and not an explicit endorsement of your number two. How should people kind of view that?
Well, I'm also the head of the Democratic Party, and I really believe that the power of the party is the quality of the candidates. And I look to a very vigorous campaign. We've heard several candidates announce that they are pursuing the governorship. I expect that we'll begin to understand what they stand for. And as the campaign proceeds, the real tough questions that would determine the future direction of the state will be able to identify really who the best person to lead the state would be.
And what is the biggest challenge that you want to see your successor take on that you're weighing in terms of this is something that still needs to be worked on, and I want to know their position on X, Y, and Z?
Well, I mean, I do think, as you had mentioned before, I mean, housing and homelessness continue to be a challenge. I do believe that we've made significant progress, but there's still too many homeless individuals. When the median price of a home is $1 million on Oahu, it really makes it difficult. We have been trying to get the legislature to approve 99-year leases. We believe that would help reduce the cost of housing here. We have been unsuccessful. Certainly, maybe that approach is not the best approach, but developing affordable housing for our community it continues to be a huge need, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Sustainability and sustainable Hawaii and continuing the fight against climate change. We've made tremendous progress over the last 7 years, but there is still so much more that we need to do. This is the decade of action. Hawaii has clearly become a leader in high impact action to reduce the climate crisis and global warming. And we need to continue on that path or accelerate the transition in order to save the planet.
What's next for you? I mean, you've been governor for 8 years. What's your plan after you leave office?
I don't have any specific plans other than finishing my term very strong. There are a number of things that I continue to work on. I'll worry about how to fill my time after December 5th once we get there. I certainly would be looking to take some time off. The pandemic has been a challenge. It made a 24/7 job 40/7 clearly every day. And certainly I look forward to being able to take some time off with Don.
What's the first thing you want to do on like the first day of when you're out?
Just sit quietly and take some time to enjoy, wherever I am. I think that's just really important.
And I just lastly, I just will give you the floor. I guess what are the biggest criticisms that you hear or that from people out and about that you want to respond to?
Well, I mean, I do think that, and I just want to express my appreciation to the people of Hawaii. Clearly, Hawaii has performed the best in the country because people have made personal sacrifices to do the right thing and help support our community. And that's what makes Hawaii special. And I just really want to thank all the people of Hawaii.
Anything else, Governor, you wanted to add or I forgot to ask you?
No, I'm really, thank you for this opportunity to meet. I do think, and we'll be seeing more people in person and face to face as we migrate from this COVID pandemic and we start to live with the virus.
Cool, thanks.